Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Janis Volbergs, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here today. Thank you, Infinitum, for inviting us. And yes, so I'll be talking about the next steps, what happens when you have all of that data, how you can cope with it, how you can quickly get to valuable insights. And so effectively, that's what ZoomCharts is all about. We are providing you a new generation of data visualization. And I'll start with a few questions. So for instance, have you ever lost in Excel? Have you lost in information as such when you need to get quick insights, but you just don't know how, where, what happens? And all of you know that there's a new buzz term called big data, and but what to do with it? Like how to work with it in an efficient way? And so at ZoomCharts, this has always been our core mission to leverage the technology that we have today and to bridge the gap between the big data and the end users. And so when we started in 2013, up until then, the visualizations had been mostly used to create a one-way representation of data, which is good, but we thought that it could be better. And in today's presentation, we'll go through a couple of examples where ZoomCharts will be applied to different data sets to give you ideas on how you can optimize the way you work with big data in your day-to-day life, in your businesses, and so on. But what will be common among all these examples is that this technology, what it gives you, it will utilize your brain in such way that it will shorten the time that you spend on decision making, and at the end of the day you'll be able to make decisions more effectively and save the time that you spend on data analysis. And if you have more data to spend on data analysis, obviously you can make better decisions. And so, and before I continue with the demo, has anyone worked with ZoomCharts already except for Janis? Oh, great, we see a few guys in the audience. That's a really nice sign. Anyway, so we'll start with an example where ZoomCharts is applied to data coming from Excel. And as we know, the number one BI tool in the world is Excel. And so let me start an example here. Let's see. Perfect. So, perfect. So here we see some shiny charts, but let me just show you the underlying Excel. Okay, I hope you can see this. So effectively, what we have here is this is sample data that you could get from your CRM, where you export, for instance, your sales data. On each row, you have information about a particular deal, the company, amount, the status, and so on. And now if you are asked a question like, okay, so who's our target customer? So the next obvious step would be to, unless you have great tools, to start to create pivot tables, and in that way at least to get some insights about it, right? At ZoomCharts, how you could work with data like this is like this. So what you need to do is you browse the Excel file. Okay, so I'm going there. This is the exact same Excel file, right? And I'm opening it up. And immediately you see all of that data turned into actionable insights. So what just happened is that we analyzed the data structure in your Excel file and presented you an overview of that data. Okay, you may say that this is something you could get with an Excel also with a couple of clicks, but then something interesting happens, and this is where ZoomCharts really comes into the play. When we started to work on the ZoomCharts, this is something you could get already back then, but what you couldn't get back then is interactivity to a level like this. So for instance, here we see the sales data automatically aggregated by months. Let's say we want to transition from months to year view, right? So within the visualizations, you can just, with a tab, or if you use tablet or iPhone with a multi-touch, you can transition from time periods as you need to. And not only you can interact with this chart to select the time frame that you're interested in. So for instance, if I'm interested in 2016, I can click on that. What happens is that not only we zoom into 2016 in time, But we also can look at the other dimensions um, of that sales data right below it. And so, for instance, here we can see how our sales looked like in 2016. And now, if you want to start to profile our customers, you can do it very easily. So, for instance, if you're interested only in the lost deals, for instance, this is really important, right? How so? Because you typically want to understand like what is happening with the lost deals. How you do it? You click on the lost deal, and now interacting with any of the charts filters out only the rows of data that correspond to the selections that you make. And so effectively, what that results in is that this large Excel file that you had here with arbitrary number of dimensions, you immediately get this visual representation, and you can explore it from different aspects. And also, if you zoom into the timeline, you can also, let's say, group it by the product interest. And so in this particular case, that you can see that how different products from your company are being bought over the course of the period that you have data for. And this is really important because when you start to sell and when you have many customers, when you also have different marketing campaigns and so on, you need to understand which channels are operating better, like what products are bought in which channels. And so in this way, you don't have to be a data scientist to start ask questions. And you may notice that asking a question is really simple, right? And so, for instance, if we want to do here some more of a targeting, let's say we want to check how our customer profile looks from United States. You can just click on United States and you can immediately see that in the United States you have this type of a customers, right? So for instance, industry here is particularly the electronic technology, and if you click electronic technology, so those two clicks now acted as a filter, right? So we filtered out all the cells, and we can therefore see that, so we can see that the sources, for instance, of those cells here, right? Referral traffic operated the best in this particular case. And of course, you may ask the question like, okay, can I use map, right? And so the answer is yes, you can use map. And so if you have geospatial data, as in this case, so you can have all of that data represented also on the map, right? And it might be important for those of you doing the business globally, but also in a local perspective, in a local market, for some of you, it might be important. And obviously, as with the rest of the charts, you may, to some degree, interact with these visualizations here as well. And so this was a very quick overview on how Excel file like this can be immediately turned into explorable dashboard with cross-filtering capabilities. And you don't need a data scientist to get this up and running, so it was just one click, right? Provided you have flat data, you don't have to do anything else but just open that file. But of course, this isn't where ZoomCharts stops. This is just a kind of first insight that is relevant, I think, to most of you in the audience, as you all are related to marketing and sales. At ZoomCharts, we try to find new ways on how to visualize all sorts of data, right? And here we'll be looking at something different. So in this case, what we are doing here is we are utilizing the graph database to store the information about the financial transactions, which also might be relevant to your businesses. But then, using the graph database capabilities, we are able to ask questions and immediately detect so-called fraud rings within your e-commerce transactions. And when you detect these fraud rings, you can use ZoomCharts to then visualize how these fraud rings look like. And just to explain what happens here, right? So let's assume you have an e-commerce solution where your customers can perform online purchases, and in a graph database, you can ask questions to find related entities that perform financial transactions using some common assets. And in this case, we can see that the Amanda Barta and Alicia Bartov, they're both using the same address and the same phone number and even the same social security number to perform transactions online. And what that means is that there's a high level of potential fraud. And so with ZoomCharts, what happens is that here, using this background color, which we call auras, you can immediately visualize what are the shared assets, and then the other auras visualize the assets owned by Armando and Alicia. And then on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, we can also see the ring size and also potential financial risk, right? And so when you're presented data in a format like this, you can immediately see the connections and potential risks. And also, well, in this case, we can look at some other examples. So this one is more elaborate network, where there's actually 5 persons involved in potentially fraudulent transactions. And again, they're sharing, most of them are sharing the social security number and the same phone number to perform these transactions. And so as your businesses grow, you might be interested in utilizing graph databases to store some of your transactional data, and then use ZoomCharts to access this data and to determine the threats and perform analysis as necessary. And so in this case, this network here is not expandable, but we'll look at some other examples where you can use ZoomCharts in other scenarios. And so we looked at Excel, we looked at this graph database analysis, and now if we go into a bit more details on what type of data you can look at, so let's zoom in a little bit more on these different things. So one of the components, therefore, is a so-called network chart, and network chart allows you to explore and see connections among data in your data set, right? In this particular example here, we are looking at company and their shareholder networks, so you can see who's connected to whom. But again, this can be easily applied also to your marketing data. When you have people traveling across your site, if you then you can use this data to explore customer journeys, and you can also then add additional insights like which goals certain customers reach, and then if you combine it with different filters, you can therefore, in a very intuitive way, explore that data in more detail to try to reveal hidden connections and connections between behavior and certain goal reaching level. Yeah, and this is also used, for instance, as I mentioned, in the sales data analysis, but it's not limited to that. This network connection can be used to many other situations. For instance, in your company, the network chart is ideal to map out the processes, to see who's in your company responsible for what, and these network charts, you can then augment them with real-time data also to provide some KPI metrics about certain people in your company, so you can use this to get high-level insights in your company from an organizational perspective as well. So there's a huge potential for this particular chart, and we see it being adopted in many situations. The timeline chart, so this was, I'm focusing on that component exactly. This is interesting design. So the timeline chart, what it does, it lets you explore time-based events, right? And with ZoomCharts, again, what happens is that you can easily transition between the big picture, where you see data by years, to go even into the transactional level if you need to. Again, depends on what data you have. But what this does is that this ability to so seamlessly interact with the chart, it lets you very easily ask questions. You don't need to use any more the time pickers where you select from and to date, which is tedious. Here, if you see that there's something interesting, you just tap on that, right? And also, we can look at some example here just to have it more interesting for you. So if we go to Uzņēmuma registers, the company register in Latvia, so you may ask, here you can use ZoomCharts to explore the situation with the companies in Latvia, right? And here, if you look at the last week, so yeah, it looks like nothing special. But as we start to zoom out, we can now start to reveal the tendency, right? And as we can see, the number of registered companies is actually starting to decline here, right? And here we can also, if we cover that, we can see also more in details to what type of companies are being registered and what are being liquidated. And also, if we need to, we can just tap on, let's say, liquidated companies to see when exactly and how many such companies were registered there. And so, yes, this data is actually quite pessimistic, but does the number of companies is decreasing? And I guess it has to do with the decreasing number of also people living in Latvia and some going abroad. And so the main point is that if you're interested in anything, just tap on it, and as you can see, this basically replaces the traditional date picker. You don't need that anymore. And so the same principle actually can be used in many different ways, in many different scenarios, right? For instance, this is how your internet bank account statement could look like, but it doesn't. So instead of having this list of transactions, which you are normally presented with ZoomCharts, you could have it like this, where you see how much money you have earned, how much money you have spent, right? And then if you want to go into details in that particular year, just tap on it, right? And as you tap on it, you reveal the data behind that year. And if you focus on these two charts below, notice that as I'm changing the timeline, right, it also updates the rest of the charts. And so in this case, you can see whom you are sending your money and what's the source of your money. And also, again, the same cross-filtering idea here, right? So if you want to look only at this particular account, right, you can click on that, and it will filter the timeline, and also this list, right? So if you need to filter the list, you can do that easily. Yes, nice compliment. Anyway, so that's about the timeline. Pie chart, yeah. So before today, you most probably thought that there's nothing that could be done about the pie chart to make it more of a useful tool. But ZoomCharts actually provides you a couple of nice tricks that you can do with the pie chart to explore your category-based data. And yeah, let me just show you one particular example that I like the most. And so this is basically a Latvian car market composition all encompassed into one chart, right? And so what this chart lets you do, obviously, you can see what is the most popular car maker in Latvia. But then if you have questions, for instance, okay, so Volkswagen, right? But which Volkswagens in Latvia are more popular? So how could we know that? Well, with ZoomCharts, you can just tap on the Volkswagen to reveal the next level, right? So now we drill down into the Volkswagen to see that from the Volkswagen is the Volkswagen Gold, right? And so similarly, this could be applied also to your marketing data, where you have different channels, sub-channels to explore the data and go into the depths to ask questions ad hoc. Also, you may notice that we only have 15 brands here, but then there is the others slides, right? So this is typical scenario, you have others, and normally you don't have a clue what's inside others, right? Well, with ZoomCharts, that's not anymore, because what happens is that if you hover the others, you can actually click on it, and if I click on it, it reveals the next 15 slices, right? And so what's the idea? Idea is that if you were trying to show all of the dimensions in one pie chart, and if there's like hundreds of them, it doesn't make sense. You get small, tiny slices that you can't comprehend and understand. However, with this approach, if you need to, you can actually drill down into the others bit to reveal what's there. And of course, here you can also click on anything that you're interested in. For instance, Buzz. Of course, Buzz is interesting for all of us. And we can see that the Buzz 21 063 is the more popular, but it doesn't stop there. We can click on it also to reveal how many of them by the year of production are there in Latvia, right? So we can see that there is like 70% of all the Buzzes are from 1989. So I think this is very valuable. And then in the middle, if you click, you just go back to the previous level, right? So this is how you can use pie chart to explore category-based data in a very simple and intuitive way. And obviously the map. So we have so many data nowadays that has geographical data, whether it's global, whether it's local. When you're tracking your customers on your website, obviously you have the location data, and then especially if you have customers across the globe, you might be interested in the tendencies, where they are, where they're coming from, and if there's a particular difference in their behavior, based on their country of origin. And so let me show you again a live demo here on how you can use the map in a different scenario. So we call it a global sales data demo. And so this one actually pulls together all of the visualizations that they're offering. But again, what happens here is that your sales data gets aggregated by different ways. So first of all, on top you have the, again, the interactive timeline, so you can see the sales data by time. But what happens on the map is even more interesting. When you have these individual sales activities, ZoomCharts is able to automatically aggregate them by proximity, and then also use these interactive pie charts on top of the map to give you insights of what type of activities is happening where. And again, if you have questions, for instance, let's say we're interested in Europe, right? So what can we do? We can simply zoom into Europe, right? And as I'm zooming into the Europe, it automatically acts as a filter, right? So now the timeline is filtered by this geographical region, and also obviously the map is filtered, right? And as we are zooming in, the aggregation gets more granular, so you get more insights to what you're looking for. And obviously, you can cross-filter. So click on 2014, and as I'm doing that, you can see that the map is updated, right? And similarly, going into 1 month acts the same way. And of course, you can use external filters, so you can choose the let's say, appliances and cell phones, just to compare particular categories, right? Again, think about those as being a different marketing campaigns. Think about those as being a different channels. And so if you need to explore data, again, you can just use the touch, basically, or mouse to do that. You don't have to get technical, really. But it doesn't stop there, right? So for instance, if you are a larger company having both resellers and clients, you may be wondering like how some of your resellers are doing. So with ZoomCharts, what you can do is you can actually choose the reseller and then use the same network chart that we saw before, but now on top of the map. And in this scenario, you can see where exactly the particular reseller is and where their customer base is, right? So again, if you have like affiliates, partners bringing in sales to your company, you can use this to analyze more in detail particular behavior of the selected entity. And if there's like many customers, we're not showing all of them, but again, using the aggregation. However, yes, if we zoom in, obviously, you can get to more granular details, and so it just depends on the zoom level. And so eventually, you can see all of the customers appear up here, right? And they're all actionable, right? So if you want to, you can click on a particular customer here, and when you click on a particular customer, you can actually see from what other resellers they're actually buying the products from. So this is, again, a different way how you can analyze the data that you have already and that you might be collecting in the future. And the facet chart, this is probably the most simple chart, but it's the most basic, really, where you can use not the time data, but you can use any category-based data, right? So if you have, for instance, in this case, that's again the same cell data by different industries. So you can go ahead and again create these drill-downable charts that let you explore particular data as you need to. Right, now that we have covered the most of the chart components that we are offering, you might be wondering, okay, so what's next, right? So to what data could this be connected to? And this perhaps is the most interesting bit, because ZoomCharts technology is built in a way that it can be connected to virtually any data source, right? By providing different types of integrations, you can even build these charts inside your own websites, inside your own custom solutions. Or if you are using Excel, you can use like this Excel add-on. Or if you're using more serious business intelligence tools, such as Power BI, ClickView, you can actually use ZoomCharts in those BI tools as well. And now moving onwards, I want to focus on one of those in particular, and that's Microsoft Power BI. How many of you know what Power BI is? Okay, this is really good. So as you know, so the one thing is collecting the data, but the other thing is starting to create these reports. And Power BI basically it is a more advanced Excel to some degree, except that it can be connected to different databases directly. And so instead of having just one Excel sheet, it would be powered by actual real data coming in from your different systems, depending on how you set it up. And ZoomCharts is official partner for Microsoft Power BI, and actually they asked us to bring ZoomCharts inside Power BI, and so we were happy to work with them on that. And so what it means is that to use ZoomCharts in Power BI, it's as simple as just drag and dropping the chart in your Excel. You can just plug in the timeline chart, for instance, specify the dimensions, and you immediately can utilize it to explore the underlying data. And and our BI is currently, according to the Gartner, it's the #1 BI tool, the most fastest growing and having the largest adoption rate. And it has already, I think, more than 10 million users worldwide, and they are growing really, really fast. And so for those of you who want to get more serious about data exploration, Power BI is my suggestion as how you can get to that next level of data exploration. Because at some point you will need to start to create these reports and dashboards. And if you want something that is more or less out of the box available, then Power BI is a great way moving forward. Of course, it has some limitations, especially when you start to talk about really large data, about big data, and real time. Then it's not really optimized that well for that. However, ZoomCharts in those scenarios can be connected directly to your big data sources, and so you can create dashboards like these without the necessity to use Power BI, but instead connecting it directly to your data sources. And and so one more thing is that how the Power BI is constructed is that it provides you certain built-in visualizations that you can use for your reports, but then it has also these custom visuals, right? And custom visuals is what ZoomCharts is offering there. But the great thing is that Microsoft has decided to move forward and offer these custom visuals also to all Excel users. So custom visuals are coming to your Excel programs most likely in early next year, and that's when you will be able to use ZoomCharts natively in your Excel program out of the box. Yeah, so that I think covers broadly the topic of today's presentation, except that you might be wondering who is already using this, and actually it's quite interesting. We're not that old company. Currently, we have customers from more than 50 countries worldwide, including Microsoft, Apple, Hewlett-Packard, and others. And so they're also using ZoomCharts technology, both internally and externally, some of them for their products. And that, I think, gives also additional credibility, and that they also understand how this is different and why this should be used to boost their businesses. And so it was my absolute pleasure to introduce ZoomCharts to all of you. In the lunch break, you're all welcome to go to our stand where we have a big touchscreen device, so you can all try ZoomCharts in real world. And if you have any additional questions, we'll be happy to help and answer those. Also, my colleagues are here. And but if you have some immediate questions, I'm here to answer them. So, thank you.
I saw that you have a client Swedbank.
Yes.
I have Swedbank also, but they don't offer me this new version of the Internet Bank. Do you know, perhaps we will have them one day?
So, as I mentioned, the customers that we have, they have different use cases because of the versatility of ZoomCharts. It can be used both for the end products and for internal consumption. Swedbank is currently using it for internal consumption. So unfortunately, we can't offer you this as end users.
And one more question. Can you please tell me about your company more? Are you based in Latvia or in somewhere else? And how you started how the ZoomCharts were created?
Sure, yeah. So We are 100% Latvian company, so it was established in Riga, and it still has all headquarters here in Latvia. And we don't see us moving away from here for some time for any close future at all. And the company was established in 2013, and we are a premature capital funded company. So we have raised 1.1 million euros to create this technology, which is patent pending in multiple geographies, and the ZoomCharts trademark is also registered in quite a few territories.
What is the next steps that you are planning to do? They are not so secret.
Yes, sure. So obviously, right now we are thinking more and more on how to make it even easier for end users and companies to use ZoomCharts. And currently on our roadmap, we're looking forward to get more out of the box integrations with different BI systems. But more importantly, we are looking forward to move our cooperation with Microsoft to another level to make it more intimate, let's put it this way, to bring more features for Excel users so that you could have easier life when working with data and so that you could save time on and make better decisions.
One more. Are you planning to something for the end user, or your most focus is on the business to business side?
So currently we're focused more on the business users because making data-driven decisions is very important in businesses. Obviously, it's important also in our private lives, and I know quite a few are using ZoomCharts, the Spreadsheet Analytics approach, also to analyze their personal finances to see how you're spending your money, to make some decisions, to see what are your spending rates and so on. As for the end user, yeah, so that would be the closest one to also the consumer market. And the other tool that is available for actually also for everyone. So this graph editor is available also in very easy to use form. And so this is something you can use already today to start to create your own networks. And how you do it is basically you can start to add bubbles like these, right? And then you can do all sorts of things, right? So it's basically like a graph with this graphical user interface. You can perform different customizations, and then you can use this to create, for instance, your organizational hierarchies, to create your KPI kind of high-level process maps and so on. So this type of tool is also again used by businesses, but can be used by consumers as well for certain applications. Yes, please.
What about the pricing and is there some free of charge products or some solutions for small businesses to analyze Excel data?
Yes, sure. So speaking about Power BI, then as you know, Power BI comes into multiple flavors and it starts free, right? So if you have smaller data sets, all of you can use Power BI today for free. And it's actually quite a great tool, and for the capabilities that's included in the free version, I think it's really worth trying. And ZoomCharts custom visuals for Power BI also are available in two flavors. We are offering the free ones, so you can go today and get ZoomCharts for free in your Power BI reports. But we also offer a paid version of them, which offer more advanced configuration options and additional features. And so for Power BI, it's very affordable. So it's based on number of users who's using it in your company, and the price starts from just $19 per year per user. So for Power BI, so that's really affordable. And then when you move from there to a more advanced integrations, we have different licensing options there, depending again on the environment, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But it's all very scalable, meaning that if you have smaller business and you need just a little bit of that, there will be an option for you to get that.
Looking at long-term roadmap, do you plan to also add actual analysis features rather than just historical data visualizations, so things like outlier detection, forecast, and so on? Or you would rather that be kind of complementary
So at ZoomCharts, we focus more on this final frontier, which is visualization and interaction. And so we're not focusing that much on the actual data pre-processing. We leave that to BI tools that already can utilize different machine learning algorithms to produce predictions about how your business could move onwards. We focus more on what to do with those results, how to make them more easily understandable, and how to make them more accessible. But speaking about Power BI, we have a few charts on our roadmap that would include some of statistical analysis, such as process control chart, that could be applied when you need to see certain deviations of metrics over time and things like that. But our main core focus is still the visualization rather than data analysis. Right, if there are no questions at this point, then you're all welcome to come by our stand, and thank you for your attention.